All righty. Well, there we go. Well, from one Mikey to another, man. Thank you for joining the show, dude. Shout out to Joe for linking us up. He's been sending a lot of great people my way, and Who They Fear is really putting out some bangers, dude. I really love y'all sound. It was fun going back and listening to what you guys have put up leading up to the most recent stuff, getting ready for this one, dude. So thank you so much.
Yeah, of course, man. Thank you for having us. It's a great opportunity. I love doing things like this. Um, it's great just meeting new people.
Yeah, absolutely. Because you book shows as well, in addition to being an artist, right? Like you're in that space as well. So even before we officially hit record, just talking about music and our backgrounds and kind of leading us to where we are now, and kind of even COVID being sort of like a catalyst for some good. I mean, it is as horrible as it was, it also was a catalyst, I feel like, for music and kind of a turning point with heavy music, with pop punk. It kind of there was sort of like this reinvigoration that happened, and we were talking about that a little bit. But I usually like to go way back, man. And for y'all, we were talking about y'all's inception, and we'll get into that with the fans on this one. But for you, Mikey, when did music and like heavy music, like what was the bug that bit you with that? I always like to ask people kind of like what that rabbit hole music moment was for heavy music for them.
So with me, it's pretty simple. Pretty much anyone you probably ever talk to in this genre, the first Ask Alexandria album always is just like the big stepping stone for getting obsessed with this type of music. But outside of that, truthfully, I think the song and then the record that got me like fully attached was The Sinner by Memphis Mayfire, and then their album Challenger. As much as I love The Hollow, Challenger is just a perfect 10 out of 10 front to back record for me. Um, and then, it was just kind of like that era of seeing those artists and seeing those musicians, you know, before massive technology boom, before social media boom, before all that stuff, like having to go out there and play in front of 100 people, 1,000 people, 10,000 people, you know, every night of the week, people just there in the moment, enjoying the vibes, enjoying the music, giving their all to these musicians who are giving their lives away to create a career out of what they love and pouring their hearts into the lyrics and the music videos and how music used to be, the early days of metalcore, 2008 to like 2013 is really just like where I got hooked into everything because I just not only respected the musicians in the craft, I just liked how much dedication there was to creating good music. And it felt like even if you had a template, with, once one band made it, everyone wanted to be that band. Even if you had that template, there were still so many bands that were just putting out the best music in the genre that even to today, if you listen back with like This Is War or This Means War by Attack Attack and like the Fallout Deluxe by Crown the Empire and then the first Ask Alexandria album, like these albums still hold up production wise. And just that has always been a thing about like for me with music is like being able to realize that people were able to do this with like nothing and it just kind of sparked this like fire in me to be like I want to do that even though I have more of an advantage now um, than they did, but I still have full inspiration with all those great old albums and singles and artists back then. So yeah, I guess that's kind of the best way to put it.
Yeah, shout out to all those bands, man. Shout out to Kellen from Memphis, friend of the show. Yeah, man, it's crazy how a lot of those bands are, including Memphis, like they're still making great music and still doing awesome tours. I remember when he was on the show, he and I were geeking out about Parkway Drive a little bit too, because I think they had gone down to Australia with them for a tour at one point, like through their like native Australia, back in the day. But yeah, and even Maryland, like with Who They Fear, like the whole East Coast, dude. There's just something about. I mean, obviously, like the New England metalcore, but like the Northeast in general, man, and like the East Coast, like there's so much rich music history there, whether it's metalcore, hardcore, you know what I mean? Like it's cool. So I got to imagine like, being East Coast, like you, man, like you were kind of in the thick of all of that, like coming up too. When did you find your voice though, Mikey? Like when did you start to like really discover like getting into it from a performance standpoint?
So funny enough, I can tie it back to Memphis. That's funny if you ever see Kellen, you can tell him this story. He'll probably remember me because I was like the weird guy at the VIP asking 5,000 questions. Um, but like 2018, I went to a bunch of shows on the same tour for Memphis Mayfire and Ice Nine Kills for their Broken album release. And I met them several times and I was talking with Maddie a bunch and kind of just seeing them perform at that stage of their career while also kind of wanting to get into music but not being sure how to do it. It kind of became something where like that forced me to go get lessons, like that moment. Um, and I went from that show, I went and got lessons. I spent 2019 to 2021 grinding out scream lessons, and like just practicing like how to actually do it, then getting my craft down. And, even 2022, 2023, it took me a long time with like our Sovereign record. And we actually have an EP that's no longer on our profile anymore, but even with that EP, it was still very like bare bones me because I was still learning, I was still adapting. When you listen to like the newer stuff, I'd say like probably a year ago, at best, a year and a half ago is when I finally found my voice. I think the way I want it to be and the way I want to perform. Um, these new songs are like the best songs I've ever made, and we have like a ton of them. Only three or well, five are out, but only three off of the actual upcoming project we're doing are out. But it took a long time to figure it out, but I think like literally a year ago is when I actually truly found like my actual voice. And I started doing this like 2019 and started getting a little bit more of like performing live and having confidence in like 2022-ish. But it all stemmed from just meeting Memphis and like talking to Maddie about vocals and how he does things and like how he loves performing and things like that. And it's full circle because I play with Memphis Mayfire this summer, so it's pretty cool.
I was gonna say, as this is hitting people's ears, this is gonna be like early June, and you guys play with them. Is it what, July 10th? Is Gettysburg
Yep.
Bike, like them, the Funeral Portrait? Shout out friends of the show too, Major Moment. I love what they're doing too, and those guys are so awesome and so cool too. But yeah, man, and that's what I love about like the community of like the heavy music community and like the bands that I've had on this show there seems to be a lot of people rooting for each other, which is cool, man. Like the bills that get put together. I know it sounds like I'm name dropping like crazy right now for people listening. I'm really trying not to, but like Saving Vice, friends of the show as well. I got a chance to finally meet those guys in person when they played in Nashville a couple of years ago. And they've been on the show multiple times. Like there's a lot of really good energy in heavy music right now. In Shallows, like from New Hampshire, like they're making some noise too, man. Like I love those dudes, super cool. But like, yeah, man, like I don't know, there's something in the water up there on the East Coast. Like it's cool, but for Who They Fear, we were kind of talking before the jump. Like the inception of this, Mikey, was kind of like during during COVID. And you mentioned you said you had like a record that's no longer available because I think when I went back and listened to y'all's catalog, the first one was I think Parasite. That's like on socials, I think from like 2023. But what was kind of what was kind of the inception of like Who They Fear? And that band name is sick, by the way, too. I'm
Oh,
always
thank
curious
you.
where the names come from.
So basically, it's funny. So I over COVID, one of my good friends, he's in a band called Waters Deep. We basically got together once like distancing became you could do it at a certain degree type thing. We got together kind of like to do kind of studio work on our own, kind of create songs ourselves, and we wrote a 5 song EP. And I was like, well, I'm gonna turn this into a band. It's up to you if you want to stay around or not. I'm gonna give you writing credit regardless. Um, and we went ahead and we had three to five songs actually made into singles. And I was like, I need a song name. Well, back then, I mean, I still kind of am, but I was kind of obsessed with like Doom 2016 and then Doom Eternal and like stuff like that. So like all that stuff and like the metal music around that with all the synths and the instrumentals and stuff like that, and then kind of the concept of Doom, I was like, oh, well, what about like Who They Fear? And he was like, oh, that's cool. And that's literally how the name was made, just off of the video game Doom. It was nothing special, nothing crazy. Um, but for the EP itself, he wanted to go focus on his band, which is great. They're a fantastic band. I went by myself to a studio with Matt from Voids up here in Maryland, and we got together with original guitarist after Gabe named Trevor, and just us two in the studio made a 5 song EP. It sounded pretty good, sounded pretty great. It was for a new up and coming band where I've never been in a band before. I've never done this before. It was good enough. It was fine. It did really well for us. It took off a little bit for our first EP. We played a lot of shows around it. 2022 was just shows off of the EP, but it was all smaller things. And then we went ahead. We picked up members back then, Zach, Nick, Nate, and had a full band to play shows with. And we kind of went and made what was it? Catatonic and Defects. Yeah. So we made 2 more singles. So there were 7 songs out. We had a fallout where we had to get rid of Trevor. So then we became a 4 piece. And we went into making Parasite and Sleepless by ourselves, just independently. Uh, and then sending out like product for mix and mastering. They turned out okay. Um, Again, we were still kind of just trying to figure out our niche, our sound. So when it came to like the first 9 songs that we made, the 5 song EP and the 4 singles, we wanted to keep at least Parasite and Sleepless so people could see like kind of the origin of the band before the sound change. But with Catatonic Defects and the original EP, it kind of came down to when we did Sovereign, it was just such a drastic like increase in sound that we mutually agreed to get rid of those 7 songs just because at the time we thought it would help the longevity of the band and like the health of the band, to where if we don't have these like lesser quality kind of mediocre songs that are written by, I was fresh to all this, it wouldn't be. I don't know how to describe it really. It was just kind of like a nervous thing. We weren't sure at the time. There are parts of me that kind of slightly regret it a little bit because I feel like people like to look back on discographies and like see like where people kind of came from with their sound and kind of came from with their band. So part of me does kind of wish that we would have kept it just so people could go back and see it. Um, but there was just so much that happened with the band between member changes, sound changes, getting Sovereign done, and then kind of like, going from nothing to something because of Sovereign, and then playing, the biggest shows we've ever played back to back to back to back all throughout 2023 and 2024, that we just sadly had to get rid of that old music, and that's why no one can hear it now. I've thought about re-releasing it one day, maybe remastered, but it's okay music. That's all I can say. It's okay music. It's nothing special. But yeah, so there's everything.
And I think and thanks for taking me and the listeners through that, man, because yeah, there you're not the first artist that I've heard where it's like, they kind of, took the earliest work or some previous versions where it's just like not their sound anymore, and they took it off, because it wasn't like kind of what they're doing now. So I totally get it. And like you said, there's also that audience that kind of likes to look back on sort of the trajectory of like the initial recordings and what it sounds like now. But I mean, I know, like, I mean, I struggle with like vulnerability just like in general as a dude. So I can't even imagine like, like musically, like if you're like, oh man, like that's, you know, like I know where I was then and I know where I am now, and that's not really kind of what I'm going for anymore. So I get it, man, because yeah, getting behind the mic and being vulnerable is it takes a lot, man. There were some songs going back that I kind of highlighted, listen to your stuff, and thanks again, Mikey, for taking the time. I really appreciate it, dude. I love the new one, Dead Dreaming 2. It's got kind of like that cool digital intro. And shout out to Varia, and am I saying his name right? Is it Jacob Lizotte? Lizotte?
Yeah, it's pretty close.
Okay.
Lizotte, I'd say, or Lizette, Lizotte, I guess. Yeah.
But but that one's great. But also, man, Hollow Tide, Backstabber, um, Monument of Misery. I felt like that one was super personal. And then I know you've talked about your progression vocally, but Last Breath, man, like the last like 20 seconds of that song, 30 seconds of that song, like the way that outro is like I won't do it justice at all because I can't sing or scream or do any of like the vocal fry stuff. But yeah, people, I hope they go back and check that out. But yeah, those were some of the moments. And I know like naming favorite songs is probably like asking a singer to name like, favorite kids, but those were some moments like going back and listening to y'all's music that really stuck out to me. But yeah, that was brutal at the end of Last Breath. And it was cool to getting ready for this too, Mikey, to learn about sort of like the themes in y'all's music that I feel like tie into this podcast with March 4th in terms of like, pulling from lived experiences, struggle, resilience and reflection. For you, you mentioned like developing as like a singer and a songwriter, man, to get where you are now. But did it take a while for you to be vulnerable the way you are on these songs? Like, did it take time to get comfortable doing that, especially since like you mentioned Who They Fear? Like, this is kind of like it sounds like your first foray with like a band at this level.
Um, so first of all, I think it's so funny you didn't say Visions because that's our most like popular song right now. But honestly, no, because I think when it comes to writing songs, for me personally, I don't see a realm or a point of writing things that aren't personal or aren't vulnerable because people feed off of that. And the number one thing in my mind whenever I write is this marketable? It's great to write music for me. It's great to write music of like my feelings and what I like have to express. But it also has to be something where if I'm treating this like a business, I need to think like a business. So being vulnerable sells. So it's kind of something where it's like goes hand in hand with like, well, I want to write about myself. I want to write about my experiences, my trauma, my mind, my anything that I need to write about. But then I also want to make sure that others can relate to it because if people feel your music, it's a lot different than if people just like it and it sticks with them. That's why I think Visions is doing so well right now because it's kind of like that concept of being like you're essentially like lost in your own world and you're not sure where to find yourself. The concept of like you could have a kid, you could have a family, you could have a great paying job, you could have a house, you could have a car, you could be a millionaire. But mentally, if you're not in a way healthy to the point where you're not feelings, depression or negative thoughts or anything like that, you're still, no matter what you have, going to feel like you're lost in some capacity. And I think that's why people gravitate towards that song is like, no one, I think, truly has it figured out. And it kind of comes down to like, how do I figure it out? So when I was writing, it's kind of like I want to essentially tell my story in a way that I'm also asking myself and the listener a question because maybe we could figure out what the answer is by creating something like this. And I don't know. It's hard to describe any more than that, honestly. I'm trying to think without talking too much.
Oh, it's okay, man. No, talking's good. That like I that's why I love doing podcasting because people can expound and yeah, I wasn't trying to leave visions out. Like that is like the I have Spotify and that's like the top one on Spotify right now. But I always like to dig and go back and that is a dope song too. Um, but yeah, I like going back and jumping around and starting back like from the earliest stuff and kind of seeing how bands work their way up and I think it's cool too because y'all's music I really feel like translates live, man. Like the musicianship is say that word three times fast, but it's really good. And I like the cinematic and atmospheric elements in the music too. Like even Dead Dreaming, like the way that one kind of starts off, and there's like that sort of like digital lady voice in there. And then in the middle of that one, I don't know if this was you or Jacob, but correct me if I get these lyrics wrong. When I went back and listened to it a couple times, but it was "What if my life is never what I want it to be?" Did I catch that? Did I get that right? So I guess kind of tying into what you're talking about, it's like that, yeah, these personal journeys I think that we all go through of just trying to like, you know, like how much regret can I live with or taking chances or, you know, trying to be the best version of myself. Like I still struggle with that with like imposter syndrome and like, am I good enough? You know what I mean? And kind of where does that come from? Why do I feel like that? But I think that's what's cool about heavy music is it's kind of like exercising those demons in a brutal way musically, you know what I mean? And it's like a healthy release, you know what I mean? So no, I think you're describing it well, but yeah, man, it's cool to hear that like you feel comfortable touching on those subjects because I'm sure it's not easy. I think like you said, writing good music, but also stuff that pulls at people's heartstrings and can kind of connect with them on that deep level, you know?
Yeah, I mean, funny enough, so Jacob is the guy who does all our instrumental studio work. He just wanted his name on that song because if you haven't heard it yet, there's a first Dead Dreaming. So that's the second one, and the whole point is that each Dead Dreaming we make is like a horror movie, like it's like a different anthology. Um, so he wanted to do that song for free by putting his name on it because we were kind of talking, and he was like, "I want to make this heavy song that's kind of based on your other song because I love it." And I feel like if we could get a second song going, we could like bring new light to this like concept. So all the vocals are me except for the last like 30 or 40 seconds where Varia comes in. Um, but yeah, no, I mean, if I open it up real quick just to tell you, I don't know if that pulls my camera away. Um, hold on one second. I got you because I have the lyrics right here somewhere in my existence. All right. Yeah, no, because like even in that part, what if my life was never what I wanted it to be? What if offing myself is a second chance to breathe? Walking among the dead was never what was planned. I hear the voices in my head as they pull me by and even though I do a breathe there, originally it's supposed to be hand. They pull me by the hand, and we changed it last minute just to make it a little bit more heavy. But the whole concept about that is it's a zombie song. Yes, that's the whole point. But it's the concept of what if suicide or negative thoughts or things that weigh you down are the answer? Does that actually mean that I am successful in what my dark task was? Or does that mean that I'm just walking with others who couldn't successfully move past their demons? So, with the song being about zombies or the song being about, um, the dead, walking among the dead, what if my life was never what I wanted to be? Second chance after offering myself to breathe. It's kind of the concept of like, what if I was to end it all and I became a zombie and I was just following the world with how it wanted me to be? Would I actually be more successful or happy than I am now? Everyone wants to tell you how to live your life, how to do things, how to succeed, how to make money, how to have a family. It's the concept of like, I feel like everything around me is telling me how I'm supposed to be or how I'm supposed to exist. But if I gave into that, would I actually be what they're saying I would be? Or if I was to stick to myself, could I face and be successful against demons and dark thoughts and see the other side? Or will it eat me alive? And I'm kind of getting a little all over the place, but that's kind of like where I was with writing the lyrics for that was kind of being like, I want this to make sense to me, but the marketable side about it is I'm just going to make it dumb heavy so that if people don't care about the lyrics, they have the breakdowns and the fucking fun shit. Um, but yeah, I mean, it all comes down to metaphors and kind of creating concepts and stories off of how I'm feeling. And that song was just straight up like I don't know how what else to say. It's just a fucked up zombie story. There you go. That's just what it is.
I appreciate you sharing that, man. Yeah, because I went back and listened to it a couple of times, and I, and I relate that to that, and I feel like a lot of people relate to that in terms of like, what if my life is never what I wanted it to be? And I think that those are the things. Like I was just thinking about that the other day. It's like, you know, choices that kind of come up in life, and you're like, okay, 5 years down the line, 10 years down the line, what am I going to regret more? Am I going to regret trying it and maybe it didn't turn out the way that I hoped or didn't turn out the way that I thought? Or never trying at all. And I always feel like like I'm 38 now, and it's kind of like it's the things that you look back on and go, ah, I wish I'd have maybe given that a
Yep.
shot. That kind of eat at you more. You know what I mean? So yeah, that line I related to a lot. But has music been that thing for you, Mikey, that's always helped you kind of get through the darker stuff or the darker thoughts? Like, is that kind of been like the safe place to go with that? Because one thing that I always tell people about heavy music is like it's kind of like a positive release of negative emotion. That's how I describe it for what it does for me. You know what I mean? And I'm just curious as like a lyricist, like even before you were singing, like was that the kind of stuff that kind of helped you get through sort of the darker times?
Yeah. Honestly, I think it's always been something like that. Music is very powerful, especially if you find music that you vibe to. There is absolutely no better feeling in the world than putting on a song that you know every single word to, that is stuck in your head, and you can just sing it from start to finish. Um, and music's definitely the one, probably the number one thing for sure that's always been there because, you know, I look back on the earlier days, Black Veil Brides, Disturbed, Breaking Benjamin. That was more of my like middle school era stuff. That stuff always pushed me to like just keep going and do things and don't worry about the negativity. Don't worry about anything that you're thinking of. Like everything's fine. Like just put on your headphones, enjoy life, like just chill with the tunes. And then you move into the more metalcore era and it's like you're finally realizing that like these people that are making these songs, making these lyrics are also going through pain, also going through these things. And it's like you start to feel like you're no longer alone. Like you start to feel like other people have been through what you've been through, even if they haven't. Um, and then even getting into adult years, I have a toddler, a great family, great life. But as you get older, it doesn't matter how much you have or how successful you are. You always got to have like, there's always that need for more, more, more. Like, what's the next step? Where am I going? What am I doing next? Where can I go? How can I get more money? And music still helps with that because you get overwhelmed, you get stressed, you get anxious. Um, and music kind of helps, like, it's kind of that like you like inhaler you need, like you take a hit of it and you start to be like, okay, I can do this. So definitely music and probably video games. Those are probably the two things, honestly.
Dude, video games, yeah. I was, when you're talking about Doom earlier, like with the band name and stuff, like I remember being at my neighbor's house, like the OG Doom in the 90s on the computer, man. You know what I mean? And it's just crazy like how far graphics have come and like that too was like pretty dark for the time, man, like in the mid 90s. Like it was pretty early, you know what I mean? There was a game way back in the day on Super Nintendo that my eldest brother got me one year for Christmas called Blackthorn. I think you can still watch some playthroughs of that on YouTube too, but that was pretty gnarly too. I think I got that when I was like 8, but it was like this dude with like a sawed-off shotgun and a tank top, and he was going through like these gallows. It was a dark game, but yeah, video games. I kind of gravitated more towards like the sports ones. And as I got older, like obviously like the Madden and NBA Live and all that stuff, college football. But I remember my other brother got really into Max Payne. I think they eventually made a movie of that with Mark Wahlberg, if I'm not mistaken, years later. But
Yep.
that game was like super dark. And I still have it's in my living room. I still have my OG Xbox. You can kind of tell I'm kind of nerding out right now. I have my Stranger Things Star Court shirt on and a Goonies. I embrace it, dude. But yeah, I still have like the OG Halo. My brother and I went halvesies. Greg and I we went halvesies on Xbox back in like '01. But what are some other games for you, like video games, like either now or back then that are still like or let me ask a better question. If you had to put like five in a time capsule, like for people,
Five?
yeah, just five video games. It could be any system, it could be any era, but for like people in the year 3000 on Mars, if you had to put some video games, or if you were going to be like cryogenically frozen and you're like, I want these available when they unfreeze me.
Okay. I don't think you realize how big of a nerd I am. Okay, so because I have PS5 Pro, Switch 2, I have all my old systems back here. Um, man. I mean, for starters, I have Majora's Mask on my hand if I haven't noticed. But I'd probably say if it's top five easy picks, um, Ocarina of Time on N64, um, Banjo-Tooie on N64. Um, I don't care what anybody says, Banjo-Tooie is better than Banjo-Kazooie. I'll fight them. Um, Borderlands 2 on Xbox 360. Um, BioShock on Xbox 360. And man, I want to pick a more modern one just to be fair. And I'll go with Resident Evil 4 Remake. That's what I'll do. Yeah, that because I Resident Evil 4 is one of the greatest games ever, but instead of doing the GameCube version, I'll just do the remake. Um, but yeah, man, I play too many games. I could sit here all day and just throw 50 games into a fucking time capsule and be happy. So we're all good.
No, thanks for sharing, dude. Yeah, man, like those are all sick and yeah, it's crazy how far like the graphics and stuff have come. Like I remember when we got Xbox in 2001, man, and it was like 2001, 2002, we were like, yo, this is crazy. And just to see how far it's come even in like that 24, 25 years to now, like you could show people now and it's
Yeah, you're telling me fucking hold on. Well, and that just happened. So we went from like this, hold on. The old chords, yeah. You're telling me we went from like this ugly thing to this in less than 2 decades. Like it is crazy how time has flown. Even from I got my PS2 over here. Those controllers can compared to like PS5, and then you look at the Switch 2 controller, and then you look at the what do you call it? The GameCube, which is like a behemoth compared to that. It's just crazy where gaming has went because out of all medias, I think gaming in particular is the one that literally went from 0 to 100 in 20, 30 years. It was just like it's crazy to me how fast technology has zoomed, especially in the gaming space. Um, yeah, I mean, don't even get me started about the visuals because I grew my favorite system's in 64, and even then, you compare that to um what it wasn't even 10 years. What was it? Maybe it was 10 years. Yeah, exactly 10 years. Xbox 360. Even comparing those two, it's like, holy shit. And then you look at what's there now, and it's like, it's funny because you think about music. If you go and listen to the best metalcore albums of all time, and you listen to modern metalcore albums, the only thing that's different is going to be production, atmosphere, and synths. Everything else is the same. But then you go play video games, and it's like, holy fuck. Even movies, well, they've gotten cleaner, they've gotten crisper, and there are, better CGI, better practical effects, better things like that with green screens. You're still watching pretty much the same thing. So it's just crazy that games are like the one media that within a 20-year time span went from literally bare minimum to this. It's just wild.
Yeah, it is, man. It's like you could like the graphics of games now, like if you time traveled that and just sent like a clip of one of those games like Call of Duty to somebody in 1992, it would make their heads explode. They'd be like,
I couldn't
Wait,
imagine.
they'd be like, this isn't real. That's not act though. That's not real. That's a video game. Yeah, it's nuts. I think the one that makes me the most nostalgic, like video games wise, I loved Super Nintendo, like F-Zero. I mentioned that Blackthorn game. And then I think the first PlayStation, I remember like that intro was so dope on the first PlayStation. Like that's almost like a reset. Like if I hear that, it like immediately puts me like in like mid 90s mode. But I love Jet Moto too. Like I love those games. Like those were great.
Fucking Jet Moto.
Jet Moto, dude. Yeah.
Oh, I know all classic games. Don't get me wrong. I know them all. That one's just funny that you said Jet Moto. I'm just like, that's like fucking saying, what the fuck is that game from back then? Uh, what was it? Was it Wind Racer, Wave Racer, or whatever? Back in the day, they used to meme all the time from N64. Yeah, no, no. The PlayStation, PS2, and PS1, the boom, and then like it'd be that would come on like midnight at night while you're trying to sleep as a kid, and then you have nightmares about this fucking blue box that's doing this sound. Yeah, no. Nostalgia, nostalgia.
Yeah,
Favorite
man.
Super Nintendo game is Donkey Kong Country 2, the one with Diddy. That's mine. Yeah.
Super Nintendo's great. So the brother I was telling you about who got me Blackthorn, and thanks again, Mikey, for doing this with me and geeking out, dude. Like I could nerd out all day on all this stuff. I embrace it. I love it, man. So yeah. And that's what I would encourage people listening. Like just like we were talking about, like being who you are versus like what the world wants you to be. Like just be yourself, man, because you'll find your tribe. But yeah, one of my brothers, he works with a guy who collects like anime and all that stuff. And recently, about a month ago, well, when people hear this, it'll be a couple months ago now, but it was MTAC. It was the Middle Tennessee Anime Convention, and it was the first time I had gone, because they do like a whole booth and have all these like figurines from like Asia that he'll get, and like everything from like DVDs to like figurines and all this stuff. But one of the booths there, man, had it was like cards, like everything from like Pokemon to like Magic the Gathering, but then it was video game consoles too. And I didn't even realize like the Asian edition ones, because it had like N64s and it had like Xboxes, and it was like this one can play the Asian games, it can also play the US games. And I didn't even realize like how deep it got. It was really cool to like to see consoles. Like they had a Super Nintendo console. I'm like, I haven't seen a Super Nintendo console in probably like almost 30 years, because we always would trade in like our old stuff whenever we got the new one. So we would always like take the Super Nintendo in, or like to GameStop, or like, and it's crazy because it's like none of that stuff was like really worth anything then. But if we would have held on to it, like especially like the original Nintendos and stuff, it's all worth stuff now. It's crazy.
Yeah, no, those systems are worth a lot. If you still have a 3DS, and that's only like what, 15 years old, if that now. That thing's selling for double, triple the price it originally was. Those things are crazy. Yeah. I still keep like most of my consoles. I like pretty much have everything ever made. I just, the games I basically sold because they're worth so much money. Um, no, those gaming conventions are crazy for that stuff. If you ever have mom and pop shops, they always sell that stuff. For me, I think like my biggest thing outside of video games, that's video game adjacent, is I love collecting amiibos. You know, it's crazy because I never really used to care for these, and then like Skylanders came out a long time ago, and then these came out, and I started getting like obsessed with amiibos. Um, but like gaming's just wild.
No, it's awesome, man. Like I love talking like the video game stuff too, and I feel like the influence, um, especially in metal and certain music videos and stuff, is really cool. And even the cinematic elements, and the atmosphere with what you guys do too, man. Like I feel like that'd be sick live. And speaking of that, with Who They Fear, like the last couple of years, I was looking at the shows that you guys have played across the Mid Atlantic. Shout out to Skylit Drive, Crown the Empire, Gideon, Veil of Maya, and then as this comes out in June, about a week from us actually recording this. So for the listeners right now, this is like early June, but May's a pretty big month too, man. Shows with All That Remains, Born of Osiris, Dead Eyes. We mentioned Saving Vice. That I think that's like all in the same weekend too. Those are like two
Yeah.
different shows in the same weekend. Like, how cool is it for you, Mikey? Like we've been geeking out about not just video games but music too. And you mentioned like that era of metalcore and just heavy music that got you into it. But in one weekend, like if somebody would have told you like 15-year-old you like, yeah, in one weekend you're gonna be playing with like All That Remains and Born of Osiris, like would that have tripped you out? Because that's pretty sick, man.
Yeah, I mean, it's a weird feeling because I don't get as excited as I used to because, we played, I Sit the Kill in Secrets was a big show for me because I love Secrets. And then Crown the Empire and Archers. Archers is great. Crown the Empire is great. Summer Slaughter Tour, being able to play with like Veil Maya, Brand of Sacrifice, Gideon, 10, I forget the rest of their numbers, 56 or something. All bands I listen to, great bands. And then, we had so many other shows like Bro Job, Outline in Color, A Skylit Drive, Famous Last Words. Famous Last Words got me a little bit. I was a little excited for that one. Same with Crown the Empire, but that's because I have a big blurry tattoo on my elbow, and Crown the Empire was like freaking out over it. Um, but like I just played so many big shows. If you look back, we've played with over like 30 national bands. So like because we played with so many big bands that I grew up with, so many bands that I love and adore and have inspiration from, I'm at the point now where like, yeah, next weekend, I'm playing with Born of Osiris, Dead Eyes, All That Remains, and then the very next day we go play with like Normandy and Saving Vice and stuff like that. And then next month we play with 12 Stones, Windwalkers, Dead Eyes again. And then the month after we're going to play with Memphis Mayfire, Fire, Funeral Portrait, Major Moment. And then we have some really cool things lined up in the fall. It kind of just like it's at a point now where my excitement is hindered by the fact that it's all like me just focused on pushing the band and getting bigger and being bigger and getting the brand out there. So like I want to be excited. Like the promoter for Memphis Mayfire was like, "So do you want me to put you on the VIP list?" And I was like, please. Like I was like, I want to keep it professional, please. But I'm like excited behind my phone. I'm like, yes, meet them again. So there's still a little excitement, but it's hard. It gets a lot harder. I love Until I Wake. Got to play with them, great guys. Um, but the more you get to play with these bands, the more you get to be around these bands. They're just humans, man. It's like they can be as famous as they want to be. At the end of the day, you know, unless there's someone that's like, I guess, Ronnie Radke or someone that's worth like 10, 15 million dollars, and now you're actually around someone who probably has security guards and all this shit. it's like they're just metal dudes trying to make a career in a genre that you are making a career in. Like it's nothing like too crazy anymore for me. I wish I got more excited. It's just hard. I don't know. I feel like my excitement will be there when I play the show, but right now I'm kind of just like locked into like what's the next thing? Okay, now I have this. Can I be like, "Oh guys, I'm playing with All That Remains. Can you book me on your show because I'm playing with another big band?" You know, like that's kind of where I'm at. I'm just so business heavy in my band. I do everything, so it kind of just gets stuck on my shoulders. Um, yeah.
Well, and speaking of the next thing, like in mid-April, it was announced, and that's who linked us up. Shout out Joe from Overshadow, but that you guys are part of Overshadow, and I love what Joe's doing, man. And he's such a cool dude. I'd love to get him on here too, man. Joe, if you hear this, we gotta get that happen as well, because just hearing his journey in music too, man. But it's such a great roster of bands, and like all the bands that I've had on that have been part of Overshadow are all really cool dudes. Resider is going to be going out with Saving Vice. I actually think they're
Mm.
coming to Nashville, so I'm excited to meet those dudes in person. They've been on the show. Um, but how'd you link up with Joe, man, and how'd you make that happen with Who They Fear in terms of making that connection with Joe and Overshadow?
So funny that you bring up Resider because I book their band. I'm their booking agent. So that's kind of one way I got to meet Joe. Um, they're touring. Well, I think it's their normal manager. I don't think he's just touring manager, but Billy, great guy. He's from Dreamer Agency, fantastic dude. Send him our EPK, send him all our music. Because we were booking Resider, getting Resider on the road with Saving Vice, and then we have them going on the road later this year. And we got together, and I was like, "Hey, man, I here's like what I'm doing. Here's the shows I'm playing. Here's the things that I have going on, and I can't seem to like get a break. Like I don't know if a record label is where I need to go, but I know that I need to do something." And he was like, "Let me take your EPK. Let me go places." Um, I want to give him full credit. He reached out to Joe, assuming the guy at SBG as well, gave him our stuff, and next thing I know, I get an email, and now we're just talking consistently. And me and Joe have a great business relationship, but also I think we've built a great friendship. He's a great guy, really nice to talk to. He helps our band out a lot. And he's kind of like low key an additional manager that I've needed because, on top of booking at Core, I'm doing everything in my band. So it helps having that like additional person. Um, so with Overshadow, it kind of came down to like, hey man, we currently have this is right before Dead Dreaming dropped, so we're like, we currently have like 4 songs out, 2 songs on a record. We have the music done, like the songs are done, we have everything ready to go. I just need something that'll boost us, something that'll help us, because if I keep doing everything by myself, without a team, without people to help me, I just don't feel like I'll be able to get the full, um, results out of what I'm putting out because I just won't. Like one person can only do so much. So I went to Overshadow and I was like, hey, this is what I want to do, and we came to a deal. And being able to work with Joe, being able to work with Resider, being able to work with all the great bands over there. He used to have Lost in Separation on there, and now they're on SPG. I love those guys. Played with them a bunch. Their singer has been giving me advice and helping me out a lot. Um, it's good to be part of like a family over there because that's what this band really needed. And with how great everyone is over there, from being humans to musicians, it's like being able to get in touch with Overshadow was kind of just like not only luck, but just a really solid opportunity that I'm glad we got. And I'm glad that we were able to solidify things pretty quick because obviously we just did a music video yesterday, and that means there's stuff coming soon. So yeah.
Well, I'm looking forward to seeing what's on deck with y'all, man. As the summer progresses, and I think it's cool that with all these shows going into this episode, once it hits people's ears, and the ones that you've got coming on deck with the Gettysburg Bike Week in July, that'll be sick. And again, Memphis, The Funeral Portrait, Major Moment, Voids, I think is on that one too,
Yeah.
if I'm not mistaken. So yeah, that sounds like it'll be a lot of fun. Well, just to bring it home, Mikey, and thanks again, dude. I feel like I could talk to you for like 4 hours, and you're welcome back anytime. So we'll definitely go into like a part two, as more stuff unfolds with Who They Fear. But I guess just to bring this home, dude, like you've had an interesting journey, and there's still a big journey ahead, man, with Who They Fear, and you mentioned booking other artists, like you know but also kind of what we talked about lyrically, and the things that your band touches on. And I would imagine the feedback that you get from fans of this band is probably that personal side, like we were talking about earlier, like for people out there right now, like we're still in kind of the first part of the year. I mean, obviously, I'm not a doctor. Like I always say that, like this is an entertainment podcast. But what advice would you give, man? Whether they're in music, whether they're not in music, like people who might be struggling, like things that have helped you kind of harness the darkness and translate it into a lighter aspect, and a more and a take negative energy and turn it into positive energy.
I think the one thing I've learned to kind of live by is that you need to always find the W's when you can take them. You can be in the worst situation possible, and if you take a second, you breathe, and you think, I'm confident you'll find something within the wreckage that's beneficial or a win or anything like that. We 2 years ago had the band break up, and I had to take a year off and basically write new music, get new band members, bring the band back to light. And I went from, like 60 monthlies, lost all our lost our website, our socials were dead, lost everything basically, and had to start over literally less than a year ago. It's been 8 months, 9 months. Um, and within that small time frame, I've brought our socials back. Our band's bigger than it's ever been. We went from like 60 monthlies to like 20,000 monthlies. Um, it comes down to the moment you're in or the day you're in are only current in that moment. You never know what tomorrow is going to bring. You never know what the next opportunity is. And if you act on the negativity and you act on the darkness rather than waiting for what's next and or finding a way out with whatever could potentially be positive or a plus for you, you could miss the next best thing for yourself. My advice for like musicians or anyone out there is like, even if you're struggling now, there's always tomorrow, there's always next week, there's always next month, there's always another year. Music doesn't take overnight to become famous. Music takes 10 years, music takes 15 years, music takes 20 years. Music takes time. You need to accept that if you're losing today, you could be winning tomorrow, and you need to keep pushing forward because if you throw in the towel, and this is such a shitty way of putting it, and I always feel bad for saying this, but I like to think of things like a businessman. If you throw away opportunities because of something going on in the moment, whoever is next in line will take that opportunity and benefit off of something you could have benefited off of. Um, and even if it's hard to adapt or to um, collect yourself within whatever dark moment you're in, if you can find the strength to push forward and capitalize on what's in front of you rather than complaining about what's around you, you'll find way more success because the world doesn't stop. Time doesn't stop. No one around you stops. So if you stop, everyone else is just going to run past you. And you need to find a way to keep going, or you're just going to get left behind. And it's like blunt and it might sound arrogant, but my advice is just keep pushing, always find the W's within every situation you have, and never forget that if you don't allow yourself to grow, if you miss opportunities, you're the only one holding yourself back. No one else is. And accountability goes a long way in music.
Mikey, I think that's a great place to put a button on it, dude. And I appreciate you sharing that. Yeah, I think about that stuff all the time, pushing through and I think, when I look back on my life, and that's why I like asking that question from people about advice, like we were talking about earlier too, it's the chances that you don't take often that you look back and regret versus if you take a chance and even if something doesn't turn out the way that you think, it's an opportunity to learn or grow, and sometimes your best teacher is like your last mistake. And even when I started doing this stuff, like I still remember the first time I got in front of a camera, like broadcasting local high school football when I was 22 in my hometown, and like how nervous I was. But that really helped me come out of my shell more from just writing music feature stories back in the day, and really was the catalyst. And sadly, they both passed away last year with different health battles, like a month apart. But my mentors in broadcasting, like taking a chance on me, when I had like zero broadcasting experience, and that was like a pivotal moment in my life that helped usher in everything else that I'm kind of doing right now. So kind of, going back to what you were just saying about taking opportunities, I don't think it's cold to think that way in terms of just like, yeah, like when one door closes, another one opens, but people will take the chances that you don't take too. You know what I mean? So yeah, man, I appreciate the insight. You're welcome back anytime, Mikey. I'm glad we got a chance to talk about video games and stuff too. But everybody go listen to Who They Fear, man. You guys are sick, and I'm happy you're part of like the Overshadow imprint, and that Joe linked us up. But I'll put the links in the podcast description for people who aren't aware, man. But let them know where they can find you, Mikey.
You can literally find us anywhere on Instagram with Who They Fear Official, Facebook, Who They Fear. We're on X, we're on YouTube, we're on TikTok, we're on every app. If you want to follow me directly, because I book a lot of bands, which means you could go to my page, check out the bands I book. Gives you more music, you know. That's Mikey underscore screams on Instagram or Michael Dunn on Facebook. I also book for Core Collective Talent Agency, available on everything. And I think the last thing I'll say is that I'll probably end up seeing you in September then because we'll be playing Nashville. So I'll give you details on that later.